Good afternoon everyone, and it is my privilege to share my views on very important topic, that is guidelines for programmatic management of tuberculosis preventive treatment in India. So friends, we already know that the burden of tuberculosis in India is quite alarming. India being the highest estimated, being the harbor of highest estimated cases of tuberculosis infection globally, with nearly 35 to 40 crores of Indian population having tuberculosis infection, of which 26 lakh are estimated to develop tuberculosis disease annually. So that is quite a big number, and the government of India in association with Ministry of Health Services is pledged to take very rigorous steps to combat this disease. And it is estimated that 5 to 10% of those infected will develop tuberculosis disease over the course of their lives, usually within the first 2 years after the initial infection. The risk of TB disease after infection depends on several factors, the most important being the immune status of the patient. And also it is believed that risk is increased more than 25 times among contacts of bacteriologically confirmed tuberculosis patients compared to the general population, and this number is again significant in patients who have concomitant HIV infection, and also the underlying immunocompromised conditions like diabetes mellitus and other immunocompromised situations, they increase the risk of developing tuberculosis by 3 to 4 times. So this is the burden of tuberculosis, and seeing all this data, the government of India has taken serious action, and a national strategic plan has been formulated. It was done in 2017 and it is proposed to carry on till 2025. The NSP proposes a strong detect, treat, prevent, build approach leading to prevention of tuberculosis disease by treatment of TBI, that is tuberculosis infection, which is a critical component of this project for ending TB in India by 2025. So this is a rigorous, expensive and accountable program which enforces TB contact tracing and investigation for secondary TB patient detection and treatment, coupled with active screening for tuberculosis, especially among high-risk groups, which we will be discussing later on, and also tuberculosis preventive treatment, which is the latest in DOT program guidelines, leading to total elimination of tuberculosis. So the pledge is tuberculosis-free India by 2025. So what is the multi-pronged approach? Actually, we are also running DOT center in our hospital, and we aim to provide multi-pronged approach through single window services. So what does the DOT center do? Number one is detection and tuberculosis of tuberculosis and MDR TB, then ensuring sample collection for AFB and CB NAT, HIV testing for all TB patients, providing antiretroviral therapy, providing tuberculosis preventive treatment, then chest X-ray screening of all household contacts, ensuring financial incentives to the patients, counseling and home visits. So these services are provided through single window scheme in all the DOT centers. So this is a cascade of TB case finding and TPT. First we select the target population, which I will be discussing in the next few slides. Then we rule out tuberculosis with certain signs and symptoms that I will discuss, and then role of TB infection diagnostic strategies with TST and IGRA, and then evaluating the patient for tuberculosis preventive treatment, and then starting the TPT. So this is the main algorithm. The cascade of TB case finding and TPT aims to reach out to all target population who are at risk of developing TB disease, and then they are screened for TB disease and provide TPT after ruling out the active TB disease. But let me tell you that not all individuals infected with M tuberculosis develop active TB infection, that I have already discussed. This mainly depends on the immune status of the patient, and there are no predictive tests to identify individuals who will progress to this particular disease. Tuberculosis preventive treatment is a continuum of care for routine program activities including acute case finding. See what active case finding. So what happens is when we take care of the high risk groups and we look for their symptom complex which are in close contact with the primary index case of pulmonary tuberculosis. This is one way of finding acute cases also. Like if the patient, the index patient is of pulmonary tuberculosis and the household contacts are screened for active tuberculosis, then there are much more chances of finding out the acute cases also. So that is a continuum of services leading to more and more number of active cases also. So these are the target population groups which are at high risk. So in this category, number one is patient living with HIV. That forms the target population for tuberculosis preventive treatment. Then all household contacts of pulmonary tuberculosis, individuals on immunosuppressive therapy, people with silicosis, people on anti-necrotic factor treatment, patients on dialysis, and patients who are preparing for organ or hematological transplantation. So this is a very important slide, and these category of patients should be suspected strongly, and we should always aim to follow up these patients very rigorously. So what important points we should keep in mind? Ruling out active TB is mandatory before initiation of TPT. Then in children under household contact under 5 years of age, TPT will be offered without testing for TB infection. I would like to clarify certain things here. TBI or tuberculosis infection, or what we know as latent tuberculosis infection, is if the patient has immunological evidence of tuberculosis but patient has no clinical findings of tuberculosis, or patient is not bacteriological confirmed case of tuberculosis, that is TBI or latent tuberculosis. Here this will be diagnosed only with the method of immunological testing, and in India there are two tests which we do, that is TST, that is tuberculin skin testing, and IGRA. So you all will agree that these are the two tests by which we can detect tuberculosis infection or latent TB infection. It is postulated that in children with HHC under 5 years of age, TPT will be offered without testing, and household contact with children more than 5 years, chest X-ray and TBI testing would be offered wherever available. But suppose if the chest X-ray or if immunological testing is not available, still we have to offer the contacts for TPT. See, like I am running DOT center in my hospital. So what we do is we don't do immunological testing for our contacts, whether they are of 5 years or more than 5 years. These are the guidelines which are given by WHO, but we are providing TPT to all the household contact patients irrespective of their age. Second point I would like to clarify is in TBI, like less than 5 years of age, it is mentioned that TPT will be offered without testing or without giving tuberculin skin testing or without going for IGRA, because it is postulated that BCG vaccination also plays some role in developing immunity against tuberculosis. So less than 5 years of patients, it can be eliminated. But for all practical purposes, I would like to reaffirm that we are not carrying out tuberculin skin testing or IGRA, and we have to take care of the financial issue also. One IGRA costing 1500 and then we have to wait for 1 week. That is practically not possible for tuberculosis contact cases. So what we are doing is we are screening the high risk population. And then screening is done, which I will be discussing later. Rule out active tuberculosis disease and start the patient on TPT. So this is the general guidelines which we are following in DOT center. So what we do, this is again, I have already discussed. Suppose there is a primary index case of pulmonary tuberculosis in the house. Look for 4 symptom complex for all household contacts. Symptoms are cough, fever, weight loss, and night sweats. This is the 4 symptom complex. Index case should be pulmonary tuberculosis. At present, TPT is not extended to extrapulmonary tuberculosis, but we expect that this will be done in near future. If complex positivity is there, then we do chest X-ray and sputum AFB, see for activity of the disease, and if it is there, start ATT. But if there is no active disease, then we start the patient on TPT. TPT is given irrespective of the age, and we have to rule out certain contraindication that I will delineate later on. So this was the household contact. Now coming to the second high risk group, that is people living with HIV and AIDS. It is believed that TPT reduces the overall risk of TB by 60 to 90%. That is a very impressive figure, and that further strengthens our effort to provide TPT in our population. So it is believed that adults and children more than 12 months living with HIV should be screened for TB using a 4-symptom complex, and then TPT should be provided to those without symptoms or after ruling out active TB. So these are very general guidelines which I have already postulated. Then TPT should be given to all these individuals irrespective of the degree of immunosuppression, that is irrespective of their CD4 count, whether they are on ART or not. So irrespective of the ART status, whether they had any previous tuberculosis infection and pregnancy. And let me tell you, pregnancy otherwise also is not a contraindication for putting the patient on TPT. And TPT should be an integral part of the care package of PL-HIV. So this is what I want to emphasize on the single window services. From the same dot center, patient is receiving all the necessary care. So then expansion to other risk groups. So the Government of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is trying to extend these services to other risk groups also. So what are the other population with high risk group? People who are on immunosuppressive therapy, silicosis and anti-TNF treatment, dialysis, and patients preparing for organ and hematological transplantation. Now I would like to clarify here that diabetes mellitus, malnutrition, smoking, harmful alcohol abuse, these people they do not come under the category of high risk population as per the WHO guidelines. But one has to be extra careful while dealing with these contacts, and they should also be rigorously followed up and evaluated for developing active TB disease. Because we know that diabetes mellitus itself is a immunosuppressive condition. And then we have to identify high transmission setting also, like healthcare workers, prisons, mines, slums, tribal areas and migrant laborers. And the proper mapping should be done in these vulnerable areas, but this exercise is more for active case finding. So this I have already said for TBI infection, tuberculin skin testing and interferon gamma release IGRA, these are the two immunological tests. But my friends, I am again emphasizing that in clinical practice we are giving irrespective of the availability of these two tests. So this is for the comparison sake I have made this slide. The only point I would like to highlight is specificity of TST is very much low in BCG vaccinated individuals, and IGRA has a very high specificity in BCG vaccinated individuals. So this is one point we all have to be very careful about when we are offering these tests to the patients. So this is the algorithm. This slide is little exhausting, but I mean I would certainly like to highlight few things that in all the high risk groups we look for the symptom complex, and then if the patient is symptomatic then we look for active TB, and then after active TB is ruled out then we have to look for the contraindication for putting the patient on TPT, and if there are any contraindication then we have to defer that particular contact patient for putting them on TPT, but in the meantime you have to keep following up the patient for developing any active disease because he is in contact with an index case. So and after then again on follow-up we have to re-evaluate the patient if that active contraindication is no longer there, that I will discuss later on, and then he is a suitable candidate for putting the patient on TPT. So what are the contraindication for TPT? Active TB disease is an absolute contraindication. Even when the patient is put on TPT, patient has to be followed up for developing the signs and symptoms of active TB disease during the course of TPT, acute and chronic hepatitis, concurrent use of hepatotoxic medications like nevirapine, then regular and heavy alcohol consumption, then signs and symptoms of peripheral neuropathy, that one has to be very wary about, and then allergy or non-hypersensitivity to any drug being considered for TPT. And friends, I am again emphasizing that pregnancy and previous history, like suppose the patient has completed his treatment in the past for tuberculosis and now he is living as a contact with the primary index case, even that person is a candidate for TPT. So this is a pre-treatment assessment, elicit information relevant to TPT initiation and continuation like LFT status, allergy, HIV status, ART, pregnancy status, birth control method, and presence of comorbidity. So this is the pre-treatment assessment. So in individuals having abnormal baseline LFT, that is ALT over AST ratio more than 3 times upper limit of normal in the presence of symptoms and more than 5 times in the absence of symptoms, clinical judgment is required to determine that benefit of TPT is going to outweigh the risk of adverse events related to the therapy. So friends, this is a very important slide. I have really, made it very simple so that we can understand. So what are the TPT regimes which are presently available in India, and we are following the regimes. This is 6H regime, 6 months of daily INH. 3HP regime, INH and rifampicin weekly for 3 months. Weekly, I am again saying there is a individual tablets and fixed drug combinations are available. Patient is given weekly dose for 3 months. 1 HP is INH and rifampicin once a day for 28 days, and then 6 LFX, that is 6 months of levofloxacin, which is reserved basically for MDR-TBC. Out of these 4 TPT regimes, 6H regime, that is 6 months of daily INH, is the most popular. In our dot center, at present we have 55 patients which are on this particular regime. Then 3HP regime, INH and rifampicin weekly for 3 months. This is second most popular regime and we have started using in our patients. So at present I have 5 patients who are on this particular regime. See, we put these patients on particular regimes because we get the supply from the government of India, and then it can be considered as a research purpose also, or novelty, or wherever isolated INH is contraindicated in certain patients, and there we would like to have an alternate regime, and we consider 3HP regime that I will discuss later on. So 6H regime and 3HP regimes are the most common regimes which we are giving to our patients in dot center. So this is again, I want you to just remember one thing, that HIV population, then household contacts, and whether it is less than or 5 year or more than 5 year, and then immunosuppressant category. So target population, here we are using 6 months of daily isoniazid and 3 month weekly isoniazid and rifampicin, depending upon the if there are any contraindication to INH alone or the availability of the medication in that particular dot center. So these are the 2 regimes which we are presently following in our high risk group. So this is the dosage schedule. 6 months of daily INH monotherapy. It is dependent on age and weight band. If the patient's age is 10 years and older, it is 5 mg per kg per day. If age is less than 10 years, it is 10 mg per kg per day. So the maximum dose will be 300 mg per day. So these are the isoniazid tablets which are available in our center, 100 mg and 300 mg. And then at the bottom you can see dispersible tablets which are reserved for children less than 5 years of age. They can take the dispersible tablet. So that was 6H regime, and now I am coming to 3HP regime. That is 3 months of weekly rifampicin plus isoniazid. So that means that patient will take 12 doses, that is once a week for 3 months. So medicine formulation are isoniazid and rifampicin. These are the rifampicin tablets which are available in our center, and we are dispensing to our patients as a part of 3HP regime. So this chart basically shows the I don't know how to use the mouse, but anyways, this chart shows the comparison between these two important regimes. So what I want you to remember is interval is daily versus weekly, doses 182 in 6H regimes versus 12 doses of 3HP. We have to remember that. Then in pregnancy, it is safe for use. INH is completely safe to be used. Okay. And pregnancy, the data is still under consideration for 3HP. So this one. So data is still under consideration. So interaction with the ART regime, there are no restrictions in isoniazid, and if we consider 3HP regime, rifampicin is an contraindication for people who are on protease inhibitors, NVPs and TAF. TAF is tenofovir molecule, which is a prodrug which is actively used in patients with HIV. So my dear friends, 3HP regime, one has to be very careful. See, for household contacts we can use, but for people with HIV, we are not using. And then absorption, best absorbed on empty stomach. Isoniazid 3HP should be given with a meal. And then toxicity, one has to be very careful about the hepatotoxicity in 6H regime, which is not a major concern in patients with 3HP regime, hepatotoxicity. So accordingly, patients can be delineated. So this was regarding the regimes available, and now coming to the pyridoxine. See, we all know that peripheral neuropathy develops as a result of deficiency of vitamin B6, and that is common during TB treatment and infrequently with it is infrequent with standard doses of isoniazid during TB. This is recognized as symmetrical numbness and tingling of the extremities, and it is usually reversible upon withdrawal of INH and giving high dose of pyridoxine in therapeutic doses, that is 100 to 200 milligram per day. So in clinical practice, what we are doing is we are giving in the dose of 10 milligram per day to children and 25 milligram per day in adults, and this dose is further accelerated in patients with HIV, that is 50 milligram per day. But let me say, TPT should not be withheld, and TPT should not be stopped if pyridoxine is not available to the patient, because the fixed regimes from government, they do not come with the pyridoxine. In that setup, we can always co-prescribe pyridoxine, and maybe patient can take some simple vitamin complex containing pyridoxine. Then there was another issue, whether there is an emergence of drug resistant following TPT. That was another important question when Government of India started the TPT, but there was no evidence of significant association between development of resistance to H or R with use of the drugs with TPT. Provided active TB is ruled out before TPT is initiated. This is very important point. And then again, once a patient is on TPT, we have to keep on following up the patient to look for whether the patient is developing any active TB disease, which is quite possible. And if the patient develops active tuberculosis, then rapid molecular DST, that is drug sensitivity testing, must be offered to all patients, whether if the patient develops TB during the course of TPT or post TPT. So these are few adverse effects. I will just highlight important points. Like isoniazid, we know that asymptomatic elevation of serum liver enzyme concentration can be there. Sometimes clinical hepatitis can occur, then peripheral neuropathies, skin rash and sleepiness. Rifampicin can lead to GI side effects and cutaneous reaction and discoloration of body fluids. And rifampicin, again, similar drug reactions can occur. management of various adverse effects that depends on the severity of the side effects. Suppose patient is developing acute liver failure or elevation of serum transaminases is more than 5 times of upper limit of the normal or more than 3 times upper limit of the normal with symptoms, then we have to stop all drugs till the jaundice is subside, and then we have to reassess the patient and try to restart the patient as soon as possible, which might take up to 3 weeks. If skin reactions with rash, we can offer symptomatic treatment to the patient and then try to continue TPT. And pellagra, again very important side effect of isoniazid. High dose nicotinamide is offered to these patients, but patients should be encouraged to continue with TPT. Peripheral neuropathy, I have already discussed. GI, again we have to take care of the symptoms symptomatically. Maybe antiemetics are given and then patient can be restarted on TPT, and then lethargy and other mild side effects, they need reassurance. So this I have already discussed. So these are the special situations where TPT has to be given in certain coexisting clinical situations like women and TPT. Women pregnancy does not disqualify any patient. Otherwise also, or in HIV, I mean if the woman is living with HIV patient, so they are eligible for receiving TPT. However, we have to consider that pregnant women living with HIV are at a higher risk for tuberculosis during pregnancy and postpartum period. So TPT can be started during antenatal or postnatal periods, taking due care. Isoniazid and rifampicin are considered safe for use in pregnancy. There is no evidence to show an association of TPT with adverse pregnancy outcome like fetal neonatal death, prematurity, low birth weight and any congenital anomaly. Pyridoxine supplementation should be given routinely to all pregnant and breastfeeding women. Then contraception. Since rifampicin and rifampicin interact with oral and hormonal contraceptive, there might be a risk of decreased contraceptive efficacy that one has to be careful of. And if the patient is receiving oral contraceptive, then we have to use an alternative method or maybe like high estrogen dose may be offered to the patient. Then liver disease, I think we have discussed quite in detail, but I just want to highlight few things which are not covered in the initial slides. That 6H, that is 6 months of daily INH, is well tolerated among individuals with chronic hepatitis B virus or C. So if the patient has previous history of hepatitis B or C, that does not rule out that patient from putting him on TPT in later years. Acute hepatitis, definitely one has to defer TPT until the acute hepatitis because of any reason has resolved. Rifamycins including rifampicin are not recommended for use together with many of the direct acting ARV drugs like tenofovir, so they can compound side effects, so one has to be very careful of, and we can use alternate regimens. So the healthcare providers have to be very careful with these patients. Renal failure, isoniazid and rifampicin are eliminated by biliary excretion, so TPT can be given in standard dosage to individuals with renal failure. Here by these group, what I meant is patients with renal failure who are in contact with the primary case also, and they are in contact with the index case of tuberculosis. So among the drug users, again these patients should not be deprived of from the benefit of TPT if there is an indication of putting them on TPT. So people taking 3 HP or 4 R with opium substitution therapy should be closely monitored for signs of opiate withdrawal and other adverse effects. 6H is safe to use among people who are drug abusers, so we can safely offer them TPT. So next few slides are the management of missed doses. So suppose patient is on, I'm giving one example and then you can always build up your information on that. Like patient is on 6H or levofloxacin or 4H. These are the daily regimens, and here what we do is we see whether the patient patient has missed less than 2 weeks or more than 2 weeks. If the patient has missed less than 2 weeks, then we will resume TPT. If the patient has missed more than 2 weeks, then we will consider re-initiation of TPT in those cases. But friends, in 3HP, which is a weekly schedule, here the management will be different because the drugs are given on weekly basis. So if the missed dose is remembered, like if patient was supposed to take on Monday, but on Wednesday he remembered, so he can take on that particular day. But if the missed dose is remembered after 2 days, then patient can take, but then he can change the weekly schedule accordingly. And then if the more than 3 weekly doses of 3HP, then we have to consider re-initiation of TPT for another 3 months. So the treatment outcome or treatment completion. See, one has to be very careful, and a number of endpoints are proposed that could be used as a review of person on TPT, like 6H, 3HP, 6LFX and 4R. So here we know that the total duration is different, expected doses are different. So we all can see expected number of doses are different. So what we do is, we see whether the patient has taken 80% of recommended doses in the stipulated time, or extra 33% additional time is given to the patient to complete the remaining dose. And if that target is completed, then we consider the patient completing the TPT. My idea of showing this slide to you is that so much paperwork and so much counseling, so much follow-up and home visits are done to ensure, the government of India is taking such a strong step to ensure that patient completes his TPT. So these are the treatment outcome goals. 80% of recommended dose consumed within 133, I have already discussed. 133% of the bonus time is given to the patient. And in 3HB, 90% of the recommended dose is given in 133% of the duration, and for 4R, 80% of the recommended dose. If the patient has completed, then we can say that patient has completed his TPT. So these are few definitions. Treatment failed, patient initiated on TPT who develops active TB during any time while on TPT and then died. Then lost to follow-up, TPT interrupted by person for 8 consecutive weeks or 2 months. Then we say lost to follow-up, and we locate the patient and restart the patient again on TPT, but before that we again rule out active tuberculosis in such patients. TPT discontinuation due to toxicity and not evaluated, maybe the patient records are lost, or maybe patient is transferred to another health facility. So this is the prescription pad which we are also using. This is patient ID. See, this is the patient ID, and then contact details like household contacts, and then we take all the data and screening and the date of TPT initiation and the coverage. So this is the prescription pad we maintain in our dot center. This is our TPT team with dot provider and one person from civil hospital. And the 3 gentlemen in the picture, they are from the Nikshay team. Basically, there are many private sector. This is basically both public and private sector project. And many private sector people have taken hand in hand with Government of India to achieve the pledge. So, Nikshay, Jeet project and TB Alert. These are few private sector organizations which are helping us. So this is Nikshay Setu. This is an app which the healthcare worker, the TPT team and the patient will load on their phone, and it is just like COVID, like app which helping them in locating the patient and taking care of their pills and everything. So this is Nikshay Setu. Setu is support to end tuberculosis. So this is the recognition by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, TB Mukt Bharat pledge. So hoping to achieve this goal by 2025 and making India a better country to live. Thank you so much. Pardon?
Some free
Sir, IGRA is what is equivalent to tuberculin skin testing. The only difference is in tuberculin skin testing we are giving intradermal injection like 5 units or 10 units of tuberculin protein depending upon the age of the patient and underlying condition, and IGRA is the immunological test which is done with the serum of the patient. But we look for the antibodies. It is believed that in immunologically active patients or immunologically reactive patients, basically we are looking for the delayed hypersensitivity reaction. We believe that patients who are exposed to tuberculosis, they will have some immunological reaction and they will have some antibodies in them, and this immunological test aims to detect those antibodies only in serum of the patient. So this is equivalent to skin testing. That is done over the skin and this is done in the serum. I am not getting you, sir.
Any change in the regime of ATT?
Pardon?
Any change in the regime of ATT treatment?
ATT in which category, sir, you are asking?
Just now in pulmonary, say, pulmonary tuberculosis.
For primary tuberculosis?
Pulmonary
Tuberculosis. So basically we have to see whether the patient is in standard cases we are giving what is prescribed by the government of India, that is RHEZ for 2 months, and then for the next 4 months total is 180 days of ATT which is prescribed by the DOT center. And MDR-TB, that is depending upon whether the patient has rifampicin resistance, and then they have to go accordingly. So I didn't prepare that topic because it was not in the jurisdiction of this particular topic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohanji, for such an elaborative session. I have 2 questions. First, like you told us the 4 regimes that you follow for the TPT, and do we have any outcome data like one is better than the other? And the second is rifampicin is used.
Rifampicin is
used as one of the regime. So, like, what is your experience with these regimes? What kind do you really encounter hepatotoxicity? Because rifampicin we know it's a hepatotoxic, and I don't know about the rifampicin whether it's really that hepatotoxic as.
So actually that is the the 6 monthly INH regime is the most popular even at present also. So if I talk of my center, we have 50 patients at present on INH prophylaxis and we have just 5 patients. Actually it is all postulated by WHO, it is as per guidelines, and it is more for research actually, Dr. Prerna, that we are evaluating other regimes also. For their, and then I have already discussed that like in many patients one particular regime may be contraindicated, like INH in severe peripheral neuropathy or coexisting hepatic diseases, cirrhosis and all, it may be contraindicated. So in those patients rifampicin will be useful, and we recently received 5 boxes of rifampicin to start in our patients, and we started in 5 of our patients. But that is very, very recent, and we are still evaluating and the result, and we are moving as per directions which are given from the government of India. And I mean it is a country-wide statistics which will keep on pouring in few months, and we will know which regime is better than the others, and we will have more strong and consolidated data, and then maybe we can talk more confidently about the efficacy of different other regimes which were postulated. Maybe it will take 6 months to 1 year. Coming to rifampicin, yes, rifampicin is very, very safe drug to be used in patients where INH safety is a question, like in patients who are suffering from chronic liver disease or cirrhosis patient, they can be given rifampicin. So the results are much, much more promising, and also it is a weekly dose, so that is another added benefit. So patient can always be evaluated for developing the deterioration in liver enzymes in patients with underlying liver diseases.
Regarding the use of levofloxacin, you told us that there is levoflox for any other indications like for UTI or for respiratory indications. So we usually modify it, ma'am.
No, I think in my slides, the levofloxacin I have not mentioned in renal failure.
Ma'am, actually I read a slide in which you told that 6 days levoflox is recommended.
See, let me clarify. I am not very confident about this. Is one regime which is a very recent development, and I have not started in any of my patients so far. In a civil hospital also, I think maybe there they have started. We have levofloxacin tablets with us, 250 and 500. These two strengths are available, and at present 6 months of daily levofloxacin is restricted to patients who are the contacts of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis index case. So this levofloxacin is categorically reserved for those patients only.
But ma'am, what we do for the modification of levofloxacin is either we give it every 48 hourly, that means we give it for alternate day, even for other indications of.
Okay.
If we are using it in patients of any
so maybe yes, definitely, why not? Maybe when we have more and more work going on this particular point, yes, definitely we can have more data in near future.
Ma'am, we can reduce the dose by 50% and we can give it daily also.
Maybe yes. There are no set guidelines. See, I am telling you, levofloxacin and MDR-TB contact tracing is a very recent thing, and we haven't received any definite guidelines for this regime so far. I have mentioned it here just for the sake of documentation and completing my presentation. So, but I mean, I can't really comment on the the extensive use and extended use of levofloxacin. So maybe next time when I come back, maybe I can answer more confidently.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further discussion can be held off stage. So I invite